Alright, so now that we're reasonably happy with this particle sim, and like everything, we can always go back and change it. We're going to combine it with this. The yellow ones there were the original sources for those particles, but they'll still be a good source for our volume too, to make sure that it's more concentrated by those emission points. We are going to combine the two and make that into one volume source area. And we're going to bring back our fluid source here, but first we got to bring these streams in with the object merge. Yeah, plus it, we're going to bring both in at once. So we'll just say get particles, and I'll say u. Actually, particle source, we'll want that, yeah, and then particles out. Bam, cool. So we got them both. Very cool. The P scale this time is what's going to make one of the main differences. And we've modified our density and the P scale. Both of those things are going to contribute to the solution that the fluid source comes up with. And we can already see that it's taking a while to think about this, which is already wrong. So I'm just going to say escape, hold down escape to make it stop. Change it to manual so it doesn't try to do it again while I'm clicking on this thing. So straight off the bat, I would say let's wrangle down the P scale, because the P scale is almost certainly too big. We know that it goes from 0 to 1, and 1 would be a radius of an entire world unit, and that is pretty crazy. So let's just bring it down to like 10%. We'll start there and see what we get. So now I'm going to bring us back and see what we get this time. Okay, so it's already done, which is more correct. Although I don't actually see the density, and that is because we need to stamp the points. There we go. So now I'm gonna say, so there's the points, and there's the volume, and that's about right. And you can see, looking at it from the top, that it. I'm actually gonna turn these velocity streamers off for a second. We can see, bam, pretty cool. Get these nice shapes, these nice like sharp shapes. I'm gonna make the density go up a little bit. And I'm also going to, I want to see these other guys here. Get rid of this ground plane, but now we can see the original rigid sim. As I scrub it, and you can see how, actually it would probably look even better from the camera's perspective. So it goes bam. And you can see how it's sourcing, and it's going to throw all that stuff out like that. Very cool. What else can we do from here? So from here, we can check the... Not much density going on here. Or not many voxels, rather. 61 by 51. We could probably do like twice that, I would say. That might be better. This is something else we're going to cache anyway, so it's okay if it takes a little bit of time to compute it. I'm also going to bring a light in, use a distant light, lock it. This way we can see some shadows, get a better sense of the dimensionality of it. So that's better. And what else can we do? We can add a little bit of noise maybe. Just a little bit, nothing crazy. And we can also mess with the velocity. So let's bring the velocity back, and we'll just add like a little bit of curl noise. Bam. So it's going to add the curl noise to the whole thing, but when we source this in later, we're going to tell the simulation to only add velocity into the sim where there is already density. So we don't have to worry about that stuff further out. I just want to... I'm just noticing if I have this off, that these velocity lines are pretty straight. They're not terribly interesting, and we're always trying to add these like noises and things to give more detail, more perceived detail. We can always dial it back, but let's start with some nice detail first and then dial it back if we need to later. Something like that. Very cool. And I'm going to turn that off, and now it's still doing the velocity, it's still making that. We're just not seeing it. We can modify things like how far it looks to stamp those points. That goes for here as well. The sample distance, if I increase the sample distance, you'll see it will go farther because each of the voxels are now looking farther to find the points, but that will slow it down as you're seeing. So let's just keep it at the default. The default's pretty good for that. This noise, we can probably go a little further. I like to grain it up. There we go. And maybe we'll make the element size a little smaller. You can see the noise pattern in there. So you can see how it's adding more detail into it, into the whole thing. If I turn it off and turn it on, you can really see the difference. So that already feels even better. We'll also turn the turbulence up. Turbulence in this case doesn't mean like wind turbulence. It's talking about the recursive levels of detail. So see if it's 0, it's basically what it already looked like. Then as I add it, the details are details within details within details within details. See, look at all that great texture now that we have. It's still pretty fast to move through these, but you know, most of the iteration that we're going to be doing is going to be in the simulation itself. And so let's just cache this now. So this is not something that we have to keep having to recompute. Volume cache, or we'll say volume source cache. And we know that this doesn't go any farther than where there are particles. So the particles are gone by frame 20. So I'm just going to say we'll just cache to frame 20. And I will see you in a minute while it figures that out. Okay, so it's done caching, and we loaded it from disk, and we can see, bam, there it goes. Cool. Let's just take a quick look and maybe do like a real quick, just to get an idea of what this is starting to feel like. So there we have it. So we got, bam. This is not a simulation, of course. This is what's going to drive the simulation. Cool. So that's going to be our source. So looking at it, I could think to myself, well, maybe the particles, maybe the whole thing is probably too fast. So I'd say probably at this point, I'm going to take the velocity down on those particles and then rerun the whole thing. Meaning, going to backtrack a second to our actual particle sim. I'm going to say the particles that we come in here, maybe they should be even half that. So running this here, we've got that smoke sim still on, or the smoke source. So bam. That might be more appropriate. And I find that that's often the key to getting shots done fast, is if you start to, like, you kind of know, you've got this nagging voice in your head that's like, I don't know, it doesn't seem quite right. Instead of just keep pushing on, take the time to just be like, you know what, I know it's wrong, and I know that they're going to call this out later. So, and then, you know, it's not going to even be a big deal. So, like, here. Save the disk, reload it. So now we've got it. And then push it on through to our volume source here. I mean, we don't even really need to do anything. I can just save this to disk again. And because it's all procedural, it's just, boop, boop, boop. It's going to filter right through. And then we'll take another look at this in a second. Let's just let this run. All right, and we're done already. Sometimes I like to click that reload button just to make myself feel better. So we're in our camera again, and now I'm just going to play back the thing we just cached. And you can already see that makes more sense. So we still have some streamers that outpace it, and that's fine. That gives the suggestion of like some small pieces that had an extreme amount of energy getting shot out from something. That's fine. But by and large, this feels more appropriate, more to scale. Cool. And there you have it. So we can always come back and change all those things. That's probably good for now. Once again, as always, going to make a cool out node. And then finally, we're going to get to the collision volumes.